Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Zach Mangum. I'm the CEO of Pronto. I've got 5 minutes, but I'm going to tell you a story anyways. I grew up in a city called Orem, Utah. I don't know if you're very familiar with Utah, or Orem in particular. It might be the most ethnically and economically homogenous area on planet Earth. Everyone looks like me. About my height, my same ethnicity. We all live in the same kind of house. We all have like 6 people in the house. We all go to the same church. We all vote Republican. We all do the same stuff, generally speaking. And very, very often, what happens is these kids that grow up in Orem, they reach a point when they hit like 18, 19 years of age, and they go serve a 2-year church mission. I was one of those guys. I did that. And I didn't realize until I went to, of all places, New York City, that Utah's kind of a different place. It's actually quite different. And in Utah, what was interesting to me is I didn't realize I lived in this very tight bubble. And when I went to New York, I lived in the Bronx, I lived in Harlem, I lived literally right next to projects. I spent time in the projects. I spent time on the street talking to people that sometimes did or did not even have a home, talking about a variety of things. I taught people English. I was assigned to speak Portuguese and Spanish on my mission, and it was a phenomenal experience. It was also, at times, a pretty heartbreaking experience. It was pretty sobering to realize how privileged a background I came from without even recognizing it. A lot of the individuals that I spent time with every single day, frankly, just did not have the same shot I did. This is where I grew up. You look through that little canyon, that's Orem. And again, this is where lots of other people grow up. Far more people than what I had initially realized, having grown up in Orem. What happens is this feeds this sort of disadvantage that a lot of people have in America, feeds a big problem, and that is graduation. Many presenters so far today have shared similar statistics. About a third of students never make it across the finish line. 28% will drop out in their first year. What you find when you look at the data is those students that are dropping out, they share a lot in common. They look a lot alike. One of the things that they share in common is they have a hard time making ends meet financially while they're at school. What's interesting is a lot of these students won't complain a ton about rising costs of tuition. What they will complain a lot about is how difficult it is to manage a busy work schedule and a busy academic schedule. And over time, my busy work schedule wins out. What Pronto is doing is trying to create a more level playing field by enabling students to be able to connect with one another and overcome the hurdles of these challenges of not having enough time to spend in class. Students who, like I met in some rough areas in New York City, that maybe don't even speak English, or they don't speak it terribly well. That can be an incredibly difficult obstacle. I don't know if you've ever been to a foreign country and actually lived there, but if you have and you don't speak that language, it can be a very lonely experience. It's going to cause you, generally speaking, to step back a little bit. You're going to be a little bit less inclined to connect with not only students in that sort of setting, but even your professor. What Pronto does is, through a campus-wide real-time messaging system, enables students to connect with one another, with faculty, with TAs, with academic advisors on day one. They don't have to know one another's email address. They don't have to know one another's phone numbers either. Through our LMS integrations with Canvas, Blackboard, and others, we're able to connect students immediately on day one and pre-sort them into group and one-to-one messaging conversations with everybody that will help them get near and ultimately across the graduation finish line. Students can hold virtual meetings. They can study, accept tutoring or be involved in tutoring sessions, academic advising, and even office hours with their professors from anywhere at any time on literally about any device. We enable students to speak more comfortably and more confidently with one another. Pronto enables a student to send a message to a professor, to a fellow classmate in any language, and have that message be received by the recipient pre-translated in over 200 languages. Now there is no communication barrier. Now I can be a little bit more confident speaking up. And students love Pronto. We have best-in-class daily active to monthly active use rates that rival about the most engaging communication platforms that you can find. Right now, students spend about 6 days out of every 7 days per week engaged regularly inside of Pronto. Ultimately, it's become kind of an internal organ to their learning experience. We're live in over 50 different universities and colleges. By the end of this year, we are forecasting to be live in over 100 different universities and college campuses. We are seeking funding. We're currently under term sheet. We do have a little bit of room for participation in that term sheet or in this financing round. So if you do have interest, I'd love to chat. We'll be downstairs in the marketplace in just a few minutes. Thank you.